10 things developers didn't think anyone would try 10 days ago. Interestingly, the next suggested one is 20 things developers didn't think anyone would try, exact same title, almost, and it was a year ago. So that's interesting. That they even reuse the exact same title. We all know I like video games, so let's see. Let's see what this has to offer.
Players end up doing a lot of weird things in video games. Oftentimes,
is the volume okay?
Things that the game creators didn't even plan for. We've talked about this a lot, so today we're on...
What is this music? I don't think I've ever heard this song. It sounds kind of weird as background music.
Part 3, talking about 10 more things developers
Volume's
didn't
good,
think anyone would try in their games. Starting off with number 10, let's talk about Skyrim and bucket flying. The humble bucket. Is there anything it can't do in these games? I mean, you can put it on a guy's head and rob him blind. And if you do get caught, well, you can actually just fly away to safety. Seriously, it requires some precise positioning to get it to work, but with a little practice, a bucket can actually take you anywhere you want to go. To start your bucket flying journey, first you need like a bucket specifically with a handle. The standard open top buckets you throw on a shopkeeper's head won't work. With one secured, which I got from a farm outside of...
I have one question. I have two questions. How did anyone ever discover this? Why? I know that Skyrim is kind of a buggy mess, especially at launch. It was basically unplayable, I think, because it was just that buggy. I don't know why Bethesda does this, and I genuinely don't know. I mean, I guess in a way I can kind of see how their games are popular. Like, of course, Fallout. Of course, we have, like, the Elder Scrolls, we have Morrowind, Oblivion, which are also incredibly popular. We have Skyrim, of course. But I don't know, I just... Like, when I played Skyrim, and it's been a while, when I played Skyrim, like, it was fun, but it wasn't, like, Game of the Year material, you know what I mean? It wasn't outstanding or anything. It wasn't one of the best games I ever played. I just don't really understand why it's just that popular. With something like GTA, I understand. I'm not a fan of GTA 5, but at least I understand why it's that popular. Fallout, same thing. I've played Fallout 3 and New Vegas both for around 10 hours, and I just couldn't really get into them, and I dropped them, both of them. But I can see why they are as popular as they are. With Skyrim, I never saw it.
Solitude. All you have to do here is like place the bucket right side up in a flat open space and then stand on it in a particular spot and then hold the interact button. It's kind of an inexact science getting it to work.
Okay. Now this, if you see something like this in a game where like the bucket kind of flies up a little and also takes you with it just a little bit, like it happened here. Oh, I can see how someone would try to take this to the extreme. Okay, you know what? I can see this.
But as long as you're standing in the right place and grabbing at the correct spot, then you'll start floating up into the air. You can even control the trajectory of the bucket, if only a little bit. Yes, it is sort of pointless to do on PC with console commands anyway, but it still works on every version of the game as far as we can tell. I managed to pull this off in the Anniversary Edition, so it's open season for bucket flying, no matter which of the many versions of Skyrim you might own.
Can we do that in real life, please? I would like to be able to just lift myself like 5 meters with a bucket by trying to by standing on the bucket and trying to pick it up at the same time, and that way I would just fly up like 5 meters and break at least like 5 of my bones while falling down inevitably. Can we do that? Because there is no way to actually get down, right? You can only get up.
In the great Dead Space remake, the line gun laser trick.
Dead Space Remake is a game I have yet to play, but also I don't really feel the motivation to. Like, I played the 3 Dead Space games, like the first 3, before the remake came out, a few months before the remake came out, I think. And I wanted to then play the remake to compare it to the first one, but when it came out and the first reviews started coming out, everyone said it's basically the first game, just prettier. Like, yes, there are a few small, like, updates here and there, but for the most part, it's just the same game, so I didn't really feel like replaying the same game. But maybe, when I feel like playing Dead Space again, I might pick up the remake instead of the original.
This is one that the developers probably thought some people would try, but they may not have realized just how powerful it would be, because this thing can trivialize the game even on impossible difficulty. So the setup is simple. Just have the line gun and find something you can grab with kinesis. And, you know, any throwable object will do. Pick it up to then see how the object lines up, then drop it and use the secondary fire from the line gun on the side facing away from you.
Wait. How? Why? What?
Everything right, which is fairly easy if you got a little patience, and you've got an incredibly powerful 3-beam laser that can decimate almost any enemy you come across. These lasers...
Can we have that on the original, please? I only have the original game. Can we have that, please? This is like a second playthrough type stuff. Like, legitimately, I finished my second Silent Hill 2 remake playthrough. I just kind of ran through the game. I just kind of blasted through it on easy difficulty just to get the achievement that I finished it under 10 hours. And then I wanted to start a third playthrough, which I have yet to do, where I play it properly again and actually just experience the story once more just for myself. Because the first time I played it was on stream. I only played for a couple hours every week. Only once a week. It's not the best way to experience the game, in my opinion. So I want to have another, like, actual proper experience that I play whenever I feel like it. But this is the kind of stuff that I would do in such a second playthrough, where I play through it, but maybe pick up, like, a stronger weapon, for example. Like in Resident Evil 2 Remake, you get the rocket launcher after finishing the game. And when I actually replayed it on stream, I wanted to experience the game again, but I played it with the rocket launcher exclusively. Because it was fucking fun, and I also got to experience the game. So, you know, it's like that type of thing. Or in the Silent Hill 2 Remake, you actually unlock an incredibly powerful chainsaw when you finish the game once. And there is actually also an achievement for finishing the game without shooting an enemy. Or without killing an enemy with ranged weapons, is, I think, the exact thing. Like, you can shoot them, but you cannot kill them by shooting them. Yeah, and I think I will go for that on my third playthrough. Like, experience the game, but in a little bit of a different way. Something like this. That sounds fun. That looks fun.
Normally, but they're meant to be stationary, so enemies only tend to touch them for a second. But with kinesis, you can guide them however you want. It'll let you clear out entire rooms and barely use any ammo in the process. Just make sure you put the laser trap on the right side, because this thing hurts you just as much as it hurts them. I'm glad this is in the game because it encourages...
That honestly in a way makes it more fun though. Like the infinite rocket launcher in Resident Evil 2 doesn't damage you. It just kind of like pushes you away, it throws you to the floor, but it doesn't damage you. There's actually this really funny clip from me, I have to find it, where I use it for the first time and the zombie just kind of falls over. It was funny, I'll show you. And of course the chainsaw in the Silent Hill 2 remake, it's like a close range weapon, it won't damage me either way. So this could actually make it more fun, you know, higher stakes. Hello, zombie. Like, it was standing there against that fence, and that was I think one of the first times I ever used the rocket launcher, and so I just shot it. I thought it would just fucking blast open, fly away, everything would fly off. Hello, zombie. And instead what happens is just... That's one of my favorite clips to this day.
Just player experimentation and creativity. We all try weird stuff in games like this, convoluted stuff, and sometimes it really pays off, and that is this.
Yeah, true. I don't even know how this would work. Like, why is this even a thing? Like, how? And how did it slip past the developers or the testers? Like, he said in the beginning of this entry that maybe the developers knew of this but didn't realize just how big of an issue it would be. No. I don't believe that. Either they full-on realized how big of an issue this is and just didn't care enough to fix it, or they just didn't know of this thing at all. There is no way, if they knew of this, that they didn't know just how powerful it is.
Next, over at number 8, here's another example of a thing that's partially intentional, but clearly broken in a good way. There's a lot of...
Fun fact. My so far newest short, this is, by the way, Borderlands, in case anyone doesn't immediately see it. But my newest short or reel or TikTok, I also upload to Instagram and TikTok, but also to YouTube, is about the Borderlands franchise, where I talk about some obscure entries in the Borderlands franchise, but mainly focusing on an official Flash game that was active for less than a month.
Broken stuff you can do with enough time and patience in Borderlands 2, though. But even for this game, Salvador's whole power is just busted beyond belief. Every character you can play as has like a special ability that they can activate after a cooldown. And Salvador's, of course, lets him use 2 weapons at once. That's good and all, but what makes it go from being just normally good to being able to single-handedly kill raid bosses in mere seconds is that it's essentially glitched. Sometimes it's not, just because you get the benefits of holding 2 guns at the same time with all their passive effects at once isn't busted, but the part where certain guns that spawn additional projectiles and the game uses the damage values of the gun in your hand is. Now, if you're holding that gun in your main hand, and it's fine, but if you're holding it in your offhand, and in your main hand you've got, say, a rocket launcher, which does exponentially more damage per projectile, then that's when things get real busted. You don't even have to fire the rocket. Just use a good bullet hose weapon while holding the rocket launcher, and suddenly you've got like an infinite rocket launcher machine gun that does so much damage that you can kill bosses that are meant to be fought by a team of 4 players and take like 10 minutes of constant shooting. You can kill in seconds. It's absolutely ridiculous, but it isn't something you can do just right from the start. You do need the right weapons to really see the benefits of this thing, and that only comes from hours on top of grinding. Still, it's a pretty amazing glitch or exploit when all the stars align and you have required to pull it off. It can be really satisfying to just mow people down. Now at number 7, let's talk about Pal World and the sphere jumping.
Yeah, that also reminds me of the Resident Evil 2 Remake rocket launcher. It's just like, you just run through the game like nothing is a challenge for you.
This was probably unintentional, but maybe the developers left it in just for fun, or they were clueless, I don't know. But this trick is so easy to pull off that it almost feels intentional, but it's just borked, just janky enough.
Wait, does anyone know how the lawsuit with Pal World is going? Because, they were finally sued by Nintendo for actually something pretty ridiculous. Like, of course, it was a kind of like a little bit of a controversy from the beginning. Like, people were thinking that Nintendo was gonna sue them because it's basically Pokemon with guns, but they had no real legal ground to sue them on. And by now they figured something out. I forgot what it was. I think it was something very basic, like having a mount, like having some kind of creature that you can sit on, and I think fly with. I think that was like the exact definition that Nintendo was going after, that they had patented, I think. But it's such a basic thing in video games. There are so many games that do that. World of Warcraft, for example, or really, I don't know, can you ride dragons in Skyrim? You know, there are a ton of games that do that, so it's like, really? Why are you suing Pal World then? Yeah, because it's basically Pokemon with guns, they just needed a reason to sue. But if they are successful with that, that's a pretty bad statement, that's a pretty bad precedent. Because then they could basically sue any game company for doing anything like that. There's prior art for sitting on animals 4,000 years ago, Northern Caucasus. I wouldn't be surprised if Nintendo sued those guys too. Nintendo is ruthless. Nintendo is if there is a single company in the entire gaming space that you don't want to mess with, it's Nintendo. They are so out of touch, so ruthless, so I don't want to say anti-consumer in their products, but anti-consumer in their other practices, that it's not even funny, it's just scary. And it's just disappointing, honestly, especially from such a beloved company like Nintendo.
to make me think otherwise. So the actual trick here is simple. There's not a lot to it. Just throw a pal sphere at a critter, and then while it's capturing, climb on top of that sphere.
What?
If you manage to nab the pal and you're standing on top of the sphere when that happens, then you'll get thrown hundreds of feet into the air.
That's sick.
That's really all there is to it.
I love it.
Actually climbing on top of a sphere mid-capture can be a little awkward with the jumping, but if you know exactly where to aim and when to press, then it's not too difficult, and the effect is almost always the same. As a tool for exploring the world more quickly, this is a handy little trick that's easy to exploit, and I know we compare this game to Pokemon, and I really just like to picture Ash Ketchum trying this and get flown across the land, hundreds of feet up in the sky, only to suddenly come crashing down. Don't mind me, I guess I have an active imagination. Anyway, next at number 6, if you mostly found the box in MGS3 to be kind of pointless and kind
of... Nice. I don't know. I wasn't able to get into the franchise. To be fair, I haven't really played it. I have played the third one for a little bit when I was pretty young, and that was my only real experience with the franchise. But it also never looked like something that I would play very much. I don't know. It always looked kind of fun, and especially the first one with the top-down view, I kind of want to play. But I also never cared enough to actually do it, so I don't know.
Pointless and like a gimmicky item, then think again, because it's actually one of the most powerful pieces of equipment you've got. If you try using it,
yeah, like isn't the box like pretty iconic for the entire franchise? So like when he said useless and gimmicky items, I'm like, huh? Why?
The way it's probably intended, then yeah, it's sort of useless. You'll get spotted a lot. But if you instead just...
But if you get spotted a lot, what's the point then? Or is it just like a little reference? Because in the first game, I guess it was very popular and very actually helped not being spotted because you were in a box or whatever. And then by the third game, which by the way, as far as I know, takes place before the first game. So that's interesting. But by the third game, they realized that that's kind of dumb. Is that what it is? Or I don't know. And they just left it in as like a little reference because it's iconic? I don't know.
Slap it on and start running everywhere, then no one will catch you ever. So for one thing, when you're in the box, you actually move faster up slopes. Normally, Snake's movement is impaired when walking upward, like up steep inclines. But with a box, you can just move just as fast as going up as if you were on flat terrain, making it easier to move at full speed through the rockier terrain and stuff.
That's interesting.
The other weird benefit to the box is that instead of alerting guards when they see you, they just want to investigate, which makes sense if you were just a completely still box in the middle of the jungle, but it's just a little goofy when you're clearly just a dude with a box on his head dashing around 2 feet from the guard's face, man. Seriously.
So it's still a very powerful thing, just not in the ways that it was in the first game. Okay.
Seriously, the box completely trivializes most stealth sections, and the closer you are, the more effective it is. As long as you're able to like get out of their line of sight pretty quickly, guards will never spot you no matter how obvious you are. You gotta be good, but still, it can be completely and utterly broken if you're slick, in a way that cannot be intentional, because if you try to play it slow and carefully, then you're actually more likely to get caught. That's the whole trick of this thing.
What the dog doing?
Next over at number 5, back to Skyrim. You ever get
fucking I don't. Anyway.
So annoyed at a merchant that you just want to punch them in the face? Well, with this trick, you can. And you should, because it's an easy way to get a merchant to cycle their inventory and refill on gold without having to wait 2 weeks for them to do it. So what you do is you sell stuff to a merchant until they run out of money, and then quick save, and then punch them in the head.
What do you think you're doing? Never should have come here.
So they'll aggro on you, but don't worry about it. Just reload your save, and then boom, the merchant is back to normal and
with
a fully restocked inventory. So you can just
wait, and that does not work without punching? Wait. But you reload the game, so you load a state that was before you ever punched the guy. But he's still somehow restocked only if you punch? That's some kind of time travel paradox logic
continue to sell stuff to them. So why does this work? Well, the thing with Skyrim is that when you load a game, it resets a bunch of game variables so that it doesn't have to keep track of absolutely everything going on. They cut a few corners here. So when you load a game, it'll reset the merchant's hostility and also their inventory too.
But why do you have to punch him then if it restocks his inventory anyway? Or does it only work if it has to restock something? If it has to restore something like his hostility?
The game just like straight up resets everything about an NPC when it has to, I guess. So the important thing to keep in mind here is to...
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, I guess it just restores everything if it has to restore something, like the aggression. It just instead restores everything, I guess. But like, God, Skyrim is such a mess.
Before the punch. Don't be like a goof like us and save after. It kind of defeats the point of the whole thing. Even if sometimes they still reset and become non-aggressive, their inventories don't reset. How that works, I have no idea. It's just the inner workings of Skyrim. It's a mess.
Yeah, Skyrim is a mess. I did recommend this video. You did.
Now at number 4, here's another handy way to abuse the way a game resets the state of the world. If your car gets smashed up in GTA 5, instead of wasting your time heading all the way to a garage to fix it, just switch to a different character. Then switch back, and hey, presto, it's suddenly back to normal. Okay, look.
But also, who cares about cars in GTA? You just grab a new one. Like, yeah, that's a cool feature. I don't know why it's a thing, but, you know, cool, whatever. But who would ever actually do that? Unless you're, like, playing online.
It's not always perfect. Sometimes the windows are still blown out, but everything else is fixed. Seriously, that's all you
But
have
wait,
to do.
no. If you're playing online, then you can't do it, right? Because you're playing online. Now, have you done a lot of customization? I guess that's fair. I guess I just never did that because I never cared enough. I'm playing GTA the old-fashioned way. Speaking of old-fashioned way, where did the cheats go, man? That was the best thing about Vice City and San Andreas, and then GTA 5 just... nothing.
Just be sure to like fully transition where you have control of a new character fully before then swapping.
Like, I want fucking, like, invisible flying cars like in Vice City. Give me that. Or, like, fly around in a cheated jetpack like in San Andreas. Don't... Why?
Back again. And don't wait too long.
That
either,
was, like,
because
for me, that was the whole appeal of GTA. I never cared about the story or the missions or anything. Like, I just wanted to do stupid stuff like that. Why? Why?
your original guy might just reappear with a completely different car. This is another one of those things where developers obviously knew about it. This is an intentional decision probably on their part, not to keep the state of each character's car in memory. They just probably hope that nobody would abuse it too much. It's not that powerful, all said. I mean, you can only swap characters freely in the open world, so during missions, this sort of thing won't work, so it's limited. But still, if you wreck up a car that you really like, then this is a fast and easy way to instantly fix it. In the early days of GTA, cars were precious, and you couldn't get them this easily fixed. So if you've only
They weren't precious, you just take a new one, what?
played GTA 5, this doesn't seem like a big deal, but if you've been playing for a long time, you know this is a nice, fun little exploit. Now,
But, like, I'm now asking myself, like, what is this list ranked by? Because all things considered, this is a pretty inconsequential one. Like, yeah, you can get your car fixed in single player. This is like something I would put at number 10 if it's sorted by, you know, how big the consequences are or how dumb the thing is. Like, the bucket flying would also be somewhere near the top simply because of just how dumb it is. Or maybe by how hard it is to execute, because the box thing is also very easy to execute, it seems. Like, you just put on the box and start running, you know? That's like... It's a cool thing that many people probably don't know about, but it's like, it doesn't feel that crazy special because it's just very easy to execute. The Skyrim bucket flying seems to be very hard to execute, needs some very precise positioning, you know? Thank you for pausing on the brightest frame in existence. Yo, anything for you.
number 3, there's some crazy stuff people have managed to pull off with the Chalice.
Okay. Here you have the darkest frame in existence. Better? Are you happy now? Played GTA 2, cars are nothing, even earlier with the old ones. I played GTA 3 pretty recently, which, you know, is also one of the older ones. Yeah, in December. Almost exactly a year ago I played GTA 3, And even there, it also was a non-issue. Like, of course, there were just much less cars on the roads. It was a little annoying to get a car sometimes because they just wouldn't spawn sometimes. But overall, it just wasn't a big deal.
Dungeons in Bloodborne, specifically with the Chalice Glyph system, which lets players generate a random seed by just inputting text. So the dungeons are randomly generated, but through some quirk of the programming, people have actually been able to do things like access parts of the game you were never meant to see and find enemies that were dummied out of the original game. It's pretty wild that they essentially gave people the tool to access these game files inside of the game itself. How it works is far too complex for us to fully understand or describe, but it's still fascinating. Cut bosses and secret monsters are nice enough, but what people want are exploits here, and this is the ultimate Bloodborne exploit. A certain Chalice dungeon that lets you farm tons of blood echoes, which is the game's version of souls, so money and experience all rolled into one, without having to do anything. The glyph to access this particular dungeon is CUMMFPK, and CUMM.
I don't know much about Bloodborne. Only Souls-like that was made by From Software that I've played for longer than a couple hours is Elden Ring. I've also played a little bit of Dark Souls 1. That's it. Currently obsessed with Cult of the Lamb. I've never seen gameplay of that, and I'm kinda curious how it even plays, because all I ever saw of that was when people on Twitch were just kinda hanging out in this like menu type thing with all the characters and would tell people to join their cult. And I didn't even know what that means. Like, is that the whole game? You just look at that thing? Because at that point, you could also just play fucking Mountain. You know, Mountain? Actually, you know what? Fuck it, let me download that thing. The main thing is roguelike. Oh, really? That's cool. I like roguelike. You could say I have a little bit of a thing for roguelike. Let me show you the game Mountain. Welcome to Mountain. You are Mountain. You are God. Please enjoy your time here. I am alive. This is the game. That's it. You can zoom in on the mountain. You can zoom out very far. Very far. I'm not gonna keep going, but you can zoom out very far. You can rotate around it. You can look at it. Sometimes things will land on it, like, I don't know, random things like tires or cups or whatever. That's it. You are Mountain. So this is basically what I imagine Cult of the Lamb to be, except with little characters running around that have names. But apparently it's not that. Cult of the Lamb has two parts, an economy, building, harvesting, outdoors, dungeon crawl with each half boosting the other. Oh, okay, that's cool. You know what? I might actually be interested in it then.
MMFPK, and the jokes write themselves. So you enter the dungeon, you open the door, you walk forward a few steps, and suddenly you're flush with echoes. Now just leave, do it again, and again, and again, and again, until you're satisfied and you got everything you need. Buy up all the healing items you could ever need, or get endgame levels right at the start of the game. Do whatever. It's seriously that easy. How the dungeon works is that there's a hunter NPC that spawns under a pendulum trap. The hunter is so far away from the player that they have no animations, but their hitbox still works, so they just stand there and are killed by the trap every time. Because they're a high-level hunter, they drop tons of blood echoes. The trick here is to just hang around the entrance, and if you move forward too quickly, then the hunter will be in range and actively avoid the trap. So just stay in the starting area, and you'll get tons of blood echoes for doing literally nothing. It's awesome.
That's crazy.
Now down at number 2, if you've messed around in Bethesda games enough, you probably are aware how item ID codes work. You type in the...
I need to make a DLC of the game. You're a disembodied player in an infinite black void and need to download content for anything adult to happen. There is DLC of the game. It's called DLC Quest. I actually recently replayed it on my Steam Deck, and the game is from 2013, far way before the DLC craze was as big, as bad as it was a few years ago. I feel like it went down a little in favor of microtransactions. But the game still makes fun of that. And basically you have to collect coins, and with the coins you buy basic features like you're able to save now, I think, or you have background music now, or armor for your horse, or you get a map, you know? You buy all these little features with in-game money. That is basically the concept of this game. It just makes fun of DLC. Another one that doesn't make fun of DLC, but is instead a game where you play through the evolution of JRPGs, which is a very cool concept in my opinion. This is not making fun of DLC, it just showcases the evolution of JRPGs while playing it. So right now, this is the very first screen. You got left key. Wait, always going right is boring. So you were able to go right at first, but only right. There was this one of these chests there, and that made you unlock the left key. So now you can also go left. This unlocks the second dimension, so now you can move in 2 dimensions. And as you go through the game, you basically play through the evolution, through the history of JRPGs. So at some point it turns 16-bit, then it turns... or 8-bit, then 16-bit. Then it turns into this this Final Fantasy VII inspired look, is one of the later ones. Really cool concept. And yeah, you unlock all of these things by picking up these chests, which, you know, is a similar idea. Pretty cool game, I liked it. It was originally developed for a game jam, costs 10 euros, not very expensive, but pretty good, I like it. There is also a sequel, which is more of a proper game, you could say, more of a long game. Took me, what, like 40 hours? That's crazy. But I also did a lot of side content, so there is also a lot of side content, and the concept is the same. You play through the evolution of JRPGs, but I didn't like it as much anymore, because it's just too much. The first game had this concept, and it did just that, but it did it really well. The second game tried to put more into the game, and it just wasn't necessary. It just felt like an unnecessary addition. It's still very good, but not as good as the first one, in my opinion. Wasn't the first ever DLC a horse armor? Yes! Bethesda. The Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion. That's what started it all. Or the first outrageous DLC, the first purely cosmetic DLC, which at the time was outrageous.
Code to get the item. Stardew Valley draws items from its virtual inventory in a similar way. Although there's a pretty bizarre little exploit you can take advantage of to get some of the rarest items in the game without resorting to full-blown cheating to do it. For some reason, if
I have never played Stardew Valley.
you name something after an item code in brackets, then whenever someone says that name, then the item spawns in your inventory. Players often take advantage of this by naming their cows and chickens after certain items, but bizarrely enough, it even works if you name your main character after an item. So, like, if you want to get rare stuff like ancient fruit or prismatic shards, just name your guy the item code for that thing in brackets, and whenever someone says your name, which is pretty frequent, then it'll cause one of those items to just appear in your inventory.
That's amazing.
Just find someone in town who will always say your name, and you'll get an infinite supply of whatever that item was that you need. It's such a
But why would that happen? That's so random.
weird little trick that the developer recognized, but they were kind enough to just leave it in. Seriously, if you're so desperate for items that you're naming your main guy, brackets 74, close brackets, then, you know, they might as well just let it happen. Now, finally,
that's so dumb.
One, we need to talk about
I love
The
it.
Simpsons Hit and Run's Carl skip. I'm going to be honest here. I just like saying the Carl skip. The Simpsons Hit and Run is just a game full of fun little exploits on a sliding scale of helpfulness. This one is really only going to be useful for speedrunners.
I have never played this, but people say that it didn't age very well. There's like this nostalgic game that everyone gushes over because it's nostalgic, but if you actually play it today, then it didn't age very well. Is that true?
But it's such a goofy little thing that the developers clearly did not anticipate. So on mission 7 of chapter 1, you have to go and talk to Carl in front of the nuclear power plant. The mission he gives you is simple. Just drive from the parking lot to Mr. Burns' house.
Hey, Homer. You look like you're having one of your trademark adventures.
Danger! Mr. Burns!
It's a long race that pretty much forces you to go in a full circle, like around the entire area. but there's a way to give yourself a little shortcut. See, when the mission starts, the doors to the power plant are closed, so you can't just go that way. But there's a way to get back there. Instead of talking to Carl in the parking lot, just take your car and nudge him inside the plant. And then
What do you mean nudge? That was a full-on like drive. That was not a nudge. What?
to him in there. During the cutscene, it'll still look like you're talking in the parking lot, but then when the mission starts, you'll be inside, behind the locked doors. So now you can drive directly from here to Mr. Burns' house in a fraction of the time. It's really just a brilliantly simple trick, man. You want to get behind the doors? Then just push them past and then start the mission there instead.
That's pretty cool. I like harmless little exploits like this. That was a little gentle push.